This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your me, Louie T. Welcome to another Louie T Network exclusive as we continue down this path of the coaching hires in the National Football League in the 2017 offseason. I told you you would get wall-to-wall coverage of every single coaching hire that there was in this league in this offseason. There's been another and another. We'll talk about that other one a little bit later on down the line. But the first of the two that happened today, the Denver Broncos, who have been targeting and zeroing in on Vance Joseph. Never, ever trust a man with two first names. Ex-Dolphins defensive coordinator, now going to be the new head man in the Mile High City as the Denver Broncos make it official today. A 4-year deal, of course, conditions of that agreement not disclosed yet. You'll find out all the particulars, of course, once they have that press conference and announce the deal there. But we'll talk about and react to the Denver Broncos finding their new head coach in Denver and a first-time head coach. I love first-time head coaches because there's no track record. There's nothing really that precedes them to give you an idea as to what to expect. So really, you're left in the dark to wonder what you're going to get out of this coach. All you can do is go off of their past experiences as a coordinator or as a positional coach. And so I love first-time head coaches because you just don't know what you're going to get. Like Adam Gase last year, come out of the blocks 1-4, turn it up, and all of a sudden, they're a 10-win team and off to the playoffs. So you never know what you're going to get. He's coming from that exact staff in Miami. So we'll talk about what this means for the rest of the coaching jobs out there and what this particularly means for the staff in Denver and what that might mean for some teams looking for another type of coach, defensive coordinator. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. But before we jump into anything, Denver Broncos nor Vance Joseph, never ever trust a man with two first names related. Make sure that you subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so in 2017. Go ahead and hit that red subscription button for more great content in 2016 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting that button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network on YouTube. Also, I'm on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. I'm on Twitter quite a bit these days. Go ahead and do yourself a favor and follow me on Twitter @InTheLabRoom. I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. All of my social media platforms right down below in that box beneath me, so you can't miss them. Go ahead and handle all of those things. Now, let's jump into this hire for the Denver Broncos. Let's give you a little bit of background information on Vance Joseph. Never, ever trust a head coach with two first names. This is a guy that has an extensive history, went to the University of Colorado, played some football there as a running back, as a quarterback, then got into the league, undrafted, had a couple of cups of tea around the league, didn't last very long, went straight into coaching thereafter, went back to his alma mater at Colorado, had a little stint there as a graduate assistant, then turned around, got an actual job there, then came to the NFL. 49ers broke in as an assistant, a defensive backs coach, then got a job as the defensive backs coach in San Francisco. Then he went from San Francisco on to another destination. If I'm not mistaken, the next one on the list was Cincinnati. After that, it was Houston. After Houston, he went to Miami, where he was their defensive coordinator this past year. And now he's the new head man in Denver. So he's well-traveled, been around the league, has done a really good job. And the thing that I was most impressed with Vance Joseph with a season ago, which I think helped him land this job in this offseason with the Denver Broncos, is managing personalities. And we don't talk about this enough. We love talking X and O's and what this coach can bring to the table from this standpoint or that standpoint, or he's a defensive guy, he's an offensive guy, yada, yada, yada. The biggest thing a head coach must do, and it's a damn shame that you have to talk about this, but it's a fact. Hashtag facts. You got to babysit. You've got to manage personalities in a locker room. As a head coach, you oversee 53, and sometimes a little bit more because, as you know, these rosters can get a little big at times, but you've got to manage 53 personalities on game days, 46 personalities. You've got to get these guys all on one accord, okay? You got to get everybody on the same page. And I was impressed with what he did in Miami. You got Ndamukong Suh, who's got an ego, obviously is one of the highest paid players in the league. You've got Mario Williams, who we've seen cut up and act a damn fool in Buffalo. That's why he landed in Miami. Didn't have his best season again in Miami. Got to manage those types of personalities. This is the same guy in Mario Williams that went home and said, hey, I don't want to play in Buffalo. So we know this guy can be a malcontent at times. There are a bunch of personalities. You've dealt with injuries. Byron Maxwell comes over from Philadelphia where he struggled. You got to put in a rookie corner in Xavier Howard, and you still find ways to get it done in Miami. Cameron Wake, again, another guy coming over, chip on his shoulder, had to come from the CFL. He's a name in this league. You got to get all of these guys to work together in harmony, and I thought he did a beautiful job of doing that on the defensive side of the football. Everything wasn't always fine in Miami on that side of football, but he got those guys together, and he was just a part of that winning streak in Miami that allowed them to make that playoff push and ultimately make the postseason, as head coach Adam Gase was. And when you're successful in this league, that's when the jobs come. All you got to do is find ways to win in this league, and you will be rewarded for your efforts. And you saw that with Vance Joseph. He's put in work. Make no mistake about it. I told you he's been well-traveled. San Francisco, Cincinnati, Houston, Miami, and now Denver. He's been around the block. He's seen a thing or two. Also has been a player in this league in a couple of different stops. So he can attest to what it's like on both sides of the fence. That always helps you as a head coach in this league because players can relate to guys who were ex-players. He has that experience as well. So Vance Joseph can talk a lot about the experiences shared with some of these players. Again, this is a really good hire for the Denver Broncos. Now, again, we can't talk about what this means for them on the field in terms of what he's bringing to the table. We don't know this, okay? We can't talk about experience that he's had and past stops, what he's done as a head coach. We've never seen him in this capacity before, but what we can talk about is his ability to manage personalities. As a defensive backs coach, we saw what happened in Minnesota this year. It's not easy to manage all of those DBs in one room. In the defensive back room, you may have more players in that one room than any other positional coach on the team, maybe outside of offensive line, and that's depending on how many you decide to keep. Most teams are going to keep at least 8 defensive backs, 4 corners, 4 safeties. So you're dealing with probably the most players on the team in one meeting room of any other positional coach. And you have to, and again, you have to manage personalities in that setting, in that environment. You're dealing with a mixture of veterans and young players. You got to figure out whose ego you can stroke, who you can go pat on the back, who you can get in their ass and talk to them and chew them out. Who can you talk to as a man and go up and give it to them? Some other guys, you have to go and pat them on the back and tell them, we'll get them next time. Those are the things that I think Vance Joseph has proven over the life of his career as a defensive backs coach, that he can manage personalities. He did it in Miami last year as a defensive coordinator, all the while calling plays and helping them get to a 10-6 mark and make the postseason. After losing Ryan Tannehill, they still got it done in Miami. And again, some of that credit must be given to Vance Joseph on the defensive side of the football. So I think this is a really positive hire. We're going to find out what this actually means for the Broncos and if they can continue their winning ways. One thing's for sure, you get a defensive-minded head coach with a team that's ready to rock and roll defensively. We'll see if he can continue to have this Denver Broncos defense as one of the best in the league. And what we've found is that with this hire, guys like to come in, bring in their own coaching staff. We've already heard rumblings and grumblings that Wade Phillips probably not going to be retained as defensive coordinator, which we all kind of assumed if the wrong guy came in here, and in this case, for Wade Phillips, this is probably the wrong hire for him if he wanted to stay in Denver because, again, when you're a head coach, you want to shop for the groceries. You want your guys around you. You don't want guys you don't know and don't trust. It's a fraternity. You hear them? You have coaches say that all the time. It's a fraternity, it is definitely a boys' club in the National Football League. Guys know each other, and they're going to make sure they get their buddy a job. So if I come up, you come up as well. So with Vance Joseph, never, ever trust a man with two first names getting this job in Denver. Be assured that he's going to go and find the guys that he's worked with throughout his career and all of his travels. He's going to go and pluck some of those guys that he trusts, that he thinks can do a good job and help him maintain his job in Denver. And I don't think Wade Phillips is going to be among them when it's all said and done, which will then make Wade Phillips a very attractive defensive coordinator out on the streets. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. I'm pretty sure there's going to be someone or some questions in the chat box for you guys, from you guys, that will discuss that as we go on. Let's get to some of your comments. Speaking of which, your boss says, do you like the Raiders firing Bill Musgrave? Do you think is good? I don't want to talk too much about other teams, but since they're in the same division, I will talk about it briefly. I was not impressed with Musgrave's offensive game plan against the Texans. Look, this was coming. I think a little bit in advance of this game. I think this put the exclamation point on it, that game versus the Texans. That was a really poor game plan put together. Run on first down, run on second down, screen on third down. It's not going to get it done. I don't feel like he gave Connor Cook a chance in that game with the game plan he put forth. He lacked imagination all season long, and Derek Carr cleaned up a lot of his mistakes and messes that he created offensively, and I think the Raiders were ready to part ways, and I think that injury to Derek Carr pretty much highlighted and really accentuated the fact that Bill Musgrave didn't really do a great job with the Raiders as their offensive coordinator this year. And so we'll see what they decide to do. I've heard that they're going to promote from within. I think they've already done that, as a matter of fact, but I'm not too sure, so I don't want to speak on that at this time. But yes, I think the Raiders moving on from Musgraves was a good idea. Vincent Coe says, what's up, Lou? What's going on, Vincent Coe? He says, I heard he's not keeping Wade Phillips, though. Do you want your Redskins to get Phillips to be, you already know how I feel. You already know how I feel about that. I don't have to tell you if I want Wade Phillips or not. You already know the answer. Why are you asking questions you already know the answers to, man? Don't do that. You already know how I feel about Wade Phillips and what I want to do, and the Redskins to do out in D.C. with that defensive coordinator job. Rarely even, my man Reed says, evening, Lou. What's going on, Reed? Says, looks like you called it. We're almost out of the woods. As long as Mike Smith doesn't take the Chargers job, we're in the clear. I was worrying about nothing. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, but I told you I don't think he's going anywhere yet. Next year, I think if you guys have another strong campaign on the defensive side of the football, that's when you'll have to worry about Mike Smith getting a job. But you're not out of the woods yet. Like you said, the Chargers are still sniffing around. But if I had to guess, I think that you'll get one more season of Mike Smith as your DC before you might have to look for a new one. We'll continue with the comments. Vincent Cole once again says, do you see Kyle Shanahan or Josh McDaniels taking the Chargers head coach job? Do they fit the scheme in San Diego with the Chargers? I think Kyle Shanahan's scheme fits there well because of the zone run blocking scheme and what they have in terms of parts there. I think the personnel fits what Kyle Shanahan would like to do. He's got a quarterback already in place. With Josh McDaniels, I think what he would want to do would be okay there, but I'm not comfortable with the amount of times that they would ask Phillip Rivers to throw the football after what I saw last year with all the turnovers. And obviously, he was missing a bunch of stuff, but that still doesn't condone the amount of turnovers and mistakes made by Phillip Rivers. I don't know if I'm comfortable with him slinging it as many times as McDaniels may ask him to do so in that offense. Again, we're not talking about Tom Brady here, and we know the Patriots do a great job of switching up their offensive game plan week to week. So McDaniels, we've seen him as a coach before. We know he's got the talent to do it, but we also know that he can be a little bit of a head case at times, which is why he didn't last very long in Denver. Some disagreements on some things there got him out of Denver fairly quickly. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan is going to just take any job. And I think that Chargers job is a very appealing job. I've already mentioned the reasons why I thought that was an appealing job. And I think that if I were the Chargers, I'd want Kyle Shanahan over Josh McDaniels. That's just my personal preference. I think that Kyle Shanahan has been prepping for this moment, has been working and building towards this opportunity that he's going to get somewhere, whether it's this offseason or next, to be a head coach in this league. His dad was a head coach. He knows what it takes to be a head coach. Like I said, everything is there for him to be successful, and we know this guy can call plays with the best of them in this league. So I have no doubts in my mind that Kyle Shanahan is going to be a successful head coach in this league. It's just a matter of when and where, and I think San Diego would be a great fit for him just because you've got the back already there in Melvin Gordon the third. You've got a quarterback that can run the play action fake and drive it down the field in Phillip Rivers. Again, you don't know how long that's going to last for, but at least you know you have that in place right now. You've got a couple of pass catching tight ends that can win in OG 85, who I think is coming back for one more season, and Hunter Henry, Triple H. So you love the fact that you've got a couple of those guys. And then you got guys that can stretch the field, and Travis Benjamin. J. Cole is out there as well. Mr. Williams, I call him J. Cole. Y'all said that the other receiver actually looks like more like J. Cole. I think that Williams looks more like J. Cole than their other receiver. I can't think of his name, but he tears his ACL every year, it seems like. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess. I haven't seen the guy since like week 1, so there I am forgetting his name. But I think the Chargers have everything that they need to run that zone blocking scheme, which Kyle Shanahan and his dad have been famous for throughout the years. So I think that would be the best fit for him now that Denver is off the table, which we all thought was a logical landing destination for Kyle Shanahan. Now that that job is no longer available, I think that Chargers job is the next most appealing job on the market currently. So we'll see what happens there and what the Chargers do, in fact, decide to do after the Broncos have made their move now, leaving Kyle Shanahan available for them to talk to see if he is the right man for the job in San Diego. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag 1000 says, can't Von Miller be a 4-3 defensive linebacker? He could, but why would you want to waste him as a linebacker when he's one of the best, if not the best, pass rushing defensive end in the league / outside linebacker? Why would you want to waste him as a linebacker? It doesn't make any sense. Either he's a base 4-3 end in your 4-3 defense, or he's an outside linebacker in your 3-4 defense. But you want this guy going after the quarterback. You wouldn't want him being wasted dropping into coverage a ton, because this guy is the best at what he does. So, yeah, he could be a linebacker, but why would you put him at linebacker in a 4-3 defense? That doesn't make any sense. SoFlo Sports says, he says, gonna miss Vance. That wide 9 was awesome with us, and he's so knowledgeable of the game. He took a shitty Dolphins defense and injuries and hung the Dolphins in there. And that's why I said I believe this guy has what it takes to get this job done, because the Dolphins didn't give him much to work with this season, with some injuries. Like I mentioned earlier, the cornerback position is one of those injury-laden positions where he had to take a guy that had limited experience in this league as a corner in Tony Lippett, and a rookie in Xavier Howard, and get those guys to play football. He had to take a defensive line that at times you were rotating guys around, but you thought you were going to have a line that featured Wake, Sue, and Mario Williams, and you ended up having to rotate all these different guys in there, and they still got it done. The linebacker position was not one that was great in Miami, but he found ways to get it done with the group that he was given. And that's the mark of a good defensive coordinator. We've talked about that with the Redskins. The lack of getting the most out of what you were given. Playing the hand that you were dealt. That's what Vance Joseph did in Miami, and that's part of the reason why he's getting this job right now. Again, extensive background in this league. He's paid his dues. He's bought his time. But you look at the job he did last year with the Dolphins, it speaks volumes. They are going to miss him in Miami, and I think it's a good hire for the Denver Broncos. Ty Mo says, is this scheme going to be 4-3? We're going to see. Obviously, you don't want to fix something if it's not broken. The Broncos play a fair share of four defensive linemen anyway, because again, most teams play more nickel than they do their base packages, just because of how many teams come out in 3, 4, and even 5 wide with empty sets these days. It's a passing league now, so you're rarely going to see teams stay in their base when there's 3 receivers and a tight end split out. You're not going to stay in your base 4-3 or your base 3-4 defense. You're going to get into nickel, which is 4 down linemen. So we can sit here and argue about, potatoes, potato. It really doesn't make that big of a difference what the base defense is, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to be in a 4 down man front, in an even front, more so than you would be an odd, even if they were still going to stick with the 3-4. And I don't know the answer to that. We don't know any of that stuff. Remember, they just hired him today. Now, obviously, the Broncos already know what he intends to do. And so we'll find that out over the next couple of days. Well, I'm pretty sure in that first press conference, they're going to ask him, are you going to keep this defense as a 4-3 or a 3-4? But again, like I said, time and time again, 3-4, 4-3, it really doesn't matter anymore in this league. It honestly doesn't, because everyone is having to come out of their base to play in nickel and dime sets because of how many receivers are being put on the field at once now. You rarely see a team run it 35 times in a game. Most teams are throwing it 40, 35, and 40 times in a game. And a lot of times it's out of 3 and 4 wide sets, or 3 receivers and 1 tight end, or 3 receivers and a back, and the back shifts out of the backfield out into a route. So, I mean, you're not going to have your base personnel on the field, most likely, but 30, 35, 40% max in a game. You're most likely going to be in nickel the majority of the time. So I don't want to sit here and, like I said, talk too much about 3-4, 4-3, because I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. The Black Al Bundy says, what it do, Lou? What's up, lab room cats? What's going on, Black Al B? Rarely even says, Lou, as long as I've known you, I've never known how you become a Redskins fan. Is there a story behind it? I'd love to hear it. If we got time, I'll tell it to you, man. I've told the story at least 5 times, but maybe you weren't around those 5 times. I'll tell it again if I've got time. Tom Mo says, is Sean McVay going to leave? It doesn't seem like it yet, but I'll tell you this much. The Rams seem to be very smitten with Sean McVay. He wowed them just like Chris Cooley said he would if he interviewed for any job. And the guy's 30 years old. He's an offensive prodigy. It would not shock me if they fell in love so hard with this guy that they made him the youngest coach in NFL history. I don't see it happening. I think they're going to go by the notion of, he's too young. He's not ready yet. But make no mistake about it. Sean McVay is a smart-ass guy. I've sat and I've listened to him talk all season long for the last 2 years during his press conferences, and just listening to him talk X's and O's and talk football, and the guy is sharp as a damn tack. So it would not shock me if he went in, destroyed that Rams interview. They call him back for a second one, and he kills it again, and they're just so blown away by his presentation and the direction that he wants to take the franchise in that they make him the youngest coach in NFL history. It wouldn't shock me, but I'm still betting on them saying, he's not ready yet. He's only 30. We'll get another crack at him, or someone else will get him down the road, but we're not going to take that chance right now. He's too young. So we'll see. I don't think he's going anywhere, though. Not yet. Bossaholic says, wow, the only mediocre teams are a potential opening for Kyle Shanahan. I wonder how his interviews went. And look, some of it is what his mindset is in terms of what he wants to do, what his vision is. And then also some of it has to do with the fact that he's Kyle Shanahan. Like, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, it won't kill me to stay another year in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and all those running backs. It won't kill me to stay another year and wait to see. This is the thing. Just because you're a coach and you're a hot commodity doesn't mean you have to take a job. It's not mandatory that you take a job. This is the thing that's most important. Don't just take a job because you can. Take the right job when you can, okay? Kyle Shanahan is always going to be a hot name. Every year, he's going to be a guy that's going to be mentioned as one of the best candidates out there. So he doesn't have to worry about, will he get a shot? He's going to get a shot somewhere. The key is, don't be one of these guys that's so hasty to have your own job that you go out there and you take a job that's going to get you fired in 2 years because it's hopeless, like a San Francisco right now, because, again, that's a rebuilding job. That may be a good job 3 or 4 years down the road, but it's not a good job now. And you don't want to be the guy that allows the next guy to come and be successful. Don't be that guy. Don't be Gus Bradley. Don't be the guy that hangs around for 3 years, 4 years, gets it nice for the next guy, and then the next guy comes in and has all the success. You don't want to be that guy. You want to go into a position where you're like, man, these guys are ready to rock and roll right now. I come in, put my little twist on it, throw my little twang on it, and I'm ready to go. And I got this thing up and rolling, and I'm in a position to win right now. And so for Kyle Shanahan, it's not a must that he takes a job. So if there are all jobs left that aren't appealing to him, and the only one right now, if I'm him, that's really appealing to me is the job in San Diego. And if he doesn't think that's a good fit for him, then he doesn't need to take a job, because if I'm him, I don't want the San Francisco job, and I damn sure don't want the L.A. job. I don't want either one of those jobs, because those are jobs that will get you fired in the next 2 to 3 seasons. You don't need to take that job. You don't need that on your resume. So if I'm Kyle Shanahan, he may not get a job this offseason. It may not be in the cards for him. And he should be perfectly fine for that, because he's not going anywhere. He's going to be a hot name next season. Josh Berman says, do you think Vance will get a new quarterback, or is he going to try to develop Simeon or Paxton Lynch? By the way, big fan, first time watching live though. Hey man, I appreciate you checking me out live, and I appreciate you checking out the content in general, man. Glad to have you here watching live. And I think he's going to roll with Paxton Lynch. I think they're going to give Simeon an opportunity to compete this offseason, but I think John Elway wants Paxton Lynch in there and wants him to be the guy. That's why they spent the first round pick and traded up to get him. So I think in their minds, he's going to be the quarterback of the future. And so this is why you hire a defensive-minded coach, because you give your young quarterback a chance to develop without the pressure really being on him of having to win the game. If you can get the defense to continue to play ball the way that they've been playing over the last 3 seasons, you can allow a young quarterback to develop all the while still winning. Now, I think what the Broncos really need to do is get a better running game. And maybe they have the guys in the backfield if they can stay healthy with Booker and Anderson. Maybe they don't. But they need to run it effectively, take some of the pressure off of their young quarterbacks, and let that defense do what it is they do. And if they can do that, I think they'll be just fine. I don't see them going out and making a move, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that they may not go after a veteran like a Tony Romo. I don't see it happening again. I don't see the Broncos giving up what it's going to take in a trade to get Tony Romo and then taking on the salary that Tony Romo has currently in Big D. It just seems like too much, and it doesn't seem like the character of John Elway. You went out, you spent resources to get Paxton Lynch. I think they're going to give him every opportunity to be the guy come next season. RG3, hashtag smoking at 3, hashtag 1000 says, what team is Rex Flex and Ryan going to? I honestly don't think he's going to any team. I told you, I think Rex Ryan thinks he's beneath being a defensive coordinator. I think he views himself as a head coach. He's going to sit out a year, come back next year, and hope that someone falls into the trap of thinking that a year off and removed makes Rex Ryan a hot candidate. But if I'm Rex Ryan, I would have just come back, been a D coordinator, get my weight up again, and get my name up again, most importantly, like a Wade Phillips has done 18 times and been a head coach, or Dan Reeves, who was a head coach like 20-something times. You keep your name relevant by continuing to coach, unless you have that kind of pedigree, which he doesn't. I mean, he's got the whole lineage in the name, but hell, even his dad wasn't a great head coach. His dad was best remembered for being a defensive coordinator, which if I'm Rex Ryan, that's why I want to make my bones so that I can get another opportunity. But I think right now he thinks being a defensive coordinator is beneath him. And so he'll sit out a year and see if he can't get work a la Lovie Smith, which I say if you're going to sit out a year, you better either have hardware on your finger or you better have been to at least a Super Bowl. Rex has neither. So in my mind, he needs to get back out there and get among the coaching ranks, but I don't see him doing that, at least not this season. Rarely even says, I think Josh McDaniels will be a great head coach. He had some success in Denver. It was too much, too fast. I think so. He had some success. I remember he came out of the gate 5-0 in Denver. They were flying high. And then the bottom fell out of that thing so fast. I mean, it would have made your head spin how fast he went from the hot coach to out of Denver in no time. I mean, he ran Cutler out of town, ran Brandon Marshall out of town. And next thing you know, the Denver Broncos were shelling themselves, and he was funky in Denver. So I want to see what happens Josh McDaniels Act 2. Hopefully he's much more mature than he was the first time when he got the head coaching gig, and I hope he's learned from that experience as well. Diz says, how do you feel about Sean McDermott to the Bills? We're going to talk about that on my next video coming up here in the next 20 minutes. So stay tuned for that, or you'll have to move on to the next video. But that's going to be the next live feed that I do right at the bottom of the hour. So stay tuned. And if you're following me on Twitter or you're subscribed to me on YouTube, then you'll be in the know when that video goes live. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag telling says, my Browns need to fire our defensive coordinator and just pick up Rex Ryan. Well, you've already fired your defensive coordinator and you've already hired Greg Williams. Why would you want to do that? Greg Williams is a perfect hire for the Cleveland Browns. So why would you want to get rid of your defensive coordinator when you've already got one of the best ones in the league on your staff as we speak? Changes will be made and will be abound in Cleveland, and they'll all be for the best on the defensive side of the football with Greg Williams out there as your defensive coordinator. That's for sure. You're going to be aggressive. You can count on that. Hugo Ball 760 says, who do you honestly see getting the head coaching job in San Diego? Hard to really say right now. I don't know what direction they want to go in. Do they want an offensive-minded coach? Do they want a defensive-minded head coach? It's really hard to say. Do they want a name? Do they want a guy that's got experience? Do they want a first-time head coach? I don't even know the direction that Dean Spanos and company are leaning towards. So it's hard for me to even really say. I'd love to tell you, because Tom Telesco didn't even want to get rid of Mike McCoy in the first place. So I don't even know what Tom Telesco is thinking at this point. So I'm flabbergasted, and I'm just as in the dark as you are as to what they're going to do with their coaching search. Some of these teams, especially the ones that have already made hires, these guys have been rumored to have been in contact with these teams and have been rumored to be the favorite. We haven't heard any such noise coming out of San Diego outside of Mike Smith, and so they were supposed to have a meeting set up with Vance Joseph, and he canceled that meeting because he wasn't going to leave Denver without a deal. So I don't know what the Chargers are going to do. We don't know what their plans are and who they're targeting or who they're zeroing in on. So I can't even tell you. I'd be lying to you if I sat here and tried to act as if I knew what the next move for the Chargers was going to be in their head coaching search. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag telling. I heard that the Redskins looking for our old head coach. Well, we had a meeting with your old head coach, Mike Patton. We did for our defensive coordinator spot. But we're just doing due diligence right now. Just like the Redskins are meeting with Gus Bradley today. I mean, just got to go through and stall if you can. I mean, Wade Phillips might be shaking free here in a bit. You got to stall until you can figure out who's going to do the job. So other guys may shake free, so we'll see. Your boss says, how do you feel about the Raiders letting go of Bill Musgrave? I already answered that. And Josh Berman also says, by the way, Rex Ryan won a ring from our Ravens as a D coordinator. It's one thing to be a D coordinator, which I said he needs to go back and do. It's another thing to be a head coach and do it. Lead a team. No one's actually debating his defensive coordinator chops. I think he's a wonderful defensive coordinator, which is why I think he should go back to doing that. But as a head coach, he hasn't proven himself in this league. As a matter of fact, this last stop in Buffalo may have made it even harder for him to get a job. At least when he left New York, you're like, man, took them to the AFC Championship game a couple of times with Dirty Chaz at quarterback, and a stout defense, which is what he's known for, and a hell of a run game. And you said, hey, even when he left New York, it wasn't on the worst of terms. He can get another job, which is why he got one so quickly in Buffalo. Didn't work out that way. The defense got exponentially worse under his tutelage with his brother in the final year in Buffalo, and it just never seemed to click in Buffalo, and that's a problem. So now you question whether he's head coaching material or not. Doesn't have the hardware as a head coach to prove that he needs another opportunity, which is why he needs to go back to being a coordinator to prove that, hey, I just need another shot. So we'll see what happens with him. I just don't see it right now. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag 10 says, what happened to the Louie T live show? That's over. The season's over. It's a regular season show. So my Louie T network lineup for the season is over. Those shows are done. I did the season finale about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So yeah, that's what happened to that. Those shows will start back up come next year when the season starts. DG Production says, do you think Cal is staying in Atlanta, or will these teams keep waiting around for him? The question is, does Cal even want those jobs that are remaining? You got 3 jobs left now with the hiring of Vance Joseph in Denver and Sean McDermott in Buffalo. The question is now, does he want the Chargers, 49ers, or the Rams job? If I'm Kyle Shanahan, the only one of those jobs that appeals to me is in San Diego. Other than that, I don't want any of those other jobs. So we'll see what happens there. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm either getting the job that I want or I'm going back to Atlanta. It's simple. I'll be a hot commodity next year too. And the year after that. Like I said before, it's not like a situation where if you don't take this job, you may never get another opportunity, or your opportunity may not come for another 5 or 6 years. He's a guy that's in demand. Okay, you see how long it took Sean McDermott to get a job? He's been a hot name for at least the last 4 seasons or so. He's been the coordinator of the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers for at least the last 5 or 6 years. He's been a coordinator forever in this league. His name has probably come up on several occasions, but he'd never gotten a job. So he's one of those guys that was like, hey, if I get a chance, I need to take a job. Kyle Shanahan isn't that kind of guy. He doesn't need to take a job because he'll always be in demand. So regardless of what, I think he has leverage to be able to say, I don't need this job. I'll just wait. I'll just go back to Atlanta, be a coordinator again, and I'll try my hand at it next year. Maybe a really good job will shake free. Maybe a guy like Marvin Lewis decides to retire from Cincinnati, or they decide to get rid of him. That'd be a great job. I go in, Dalton's already there. They got a run game, got a defense. I'll just walk in there, and I'll just be able to take over, and they might be a Super Bowl contending team right away. He could wait for a job like that. Who's to say? Andrew Luck in that situation in Indy, that could be ideal for Kyle Shanahan. He's probably like, hey, I know the Colts are going to stink again, or at least they're not going to be happy with what Chuck Pagano's done, and I can go right in there and turn that thing around. So he's got options. There are options available if he just waits. He doesn't need to take a job just because. So I could easily see Kyle Shanahan returning to Atlanta this upcoming season. Let's see, make sure I didn't miss any comments. Nope. DG Production says, you doing playoff picks tonight or tomorrow? I know you're going to pick Seattle. I am doing my picks tomorrow. I was going to do it tonight, actually, but with these 2 hires, I think 2 videos is enough for me in one night. So I'm going to do these 2 videos, and tomorrow I will give you my picks for both the Saturday and the Sunday games. Josh Berman says, the Ravens recently had an annual press conference with the owner and coach and GM. Will you talk about it at some point? I doubt it. Normally I stick to the big news. I leave the micro stuff for the fans to eat up. So I doubt that I will talk about that particular press conference here on this program. But again, if anything big comes of it, anything big happens, we'll probably mention it at some point on one of the various shows that I'll be doing over the next couple of days. So there you have that. Final comment from you guys on this matter as we must move on to the other hire of the day, Sean McDermott, new Bills head coach. This coming from RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag 10 on it says the Giants should hire a coach that can catch to show Odell how to use them big-ass hands. #no homo. We know Odell can catch the football. He had a bad day. He just had a bad day. Yeah, he had a bad day. And did it have anything to do with the trip on the yacht? Probably not, but we've seen Odell drop the football before. Everyone was dropping the football over the last weekend, especially the Giants receivers. 2 big drops early in that game in the end zone. Sterling Shepard with 1, Beckham with 1. Beckham had another big drop on the 3rd down that forced a punt. It was a rough day for those guys, but they'll be fine. They'll be just fine in New York. So that's going to do it for this program. Denver Broncos make it official today. Vance Joseph, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. The new head man in Denver, taking over a very stout Denver Broncos defense. He's a defensive-minded head coach. He's going to come in, hopefully keep the party going on that side of the football, which will then allow them to develop some things on the offensive side of the football, which was the reason the Broncos did not make the playoffs this past season. So we'll see if Vance Joseph can come in, continue what the Broncos had on the defensive side of the football, maybe even advance how well they've played defensively, all the while getting the offense up to speed and getting this team back into the thick of things in the AFC West division. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Remember, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Louie T Network on YouTube. Also, I'm on Twitter @In the Lab Room. Go ahead, follow me there. And I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. All of my social media sites right below. Remember, we're changing the game 1 live feed at a time. Speaking of which, I got another live feed for you. Sean McDermott to the Bills. New head coach coming at you in about 5 minutes. For all of you watching out there, thank you. Appreciate that. I'll talk to you guys later. Broncos, the second team this offseason of 6 to hire a new head coach, the third of which we'll be talking about next. Bills hiring Sean McDermott. So 3 down, 3 to go. We'll talk about that third hire, Bills and Sean McDermott, here in a little bit. You're watching the Louie T Network. I'm signing off. See you in a bit. Have a good one.